Hey, welcome back. Today's guest is Dr. Tyler Boone, who's the owner of Ascent Eyecare and Eyewear Gallery in Franklin, Tennessee. Tyler opened as a cold start in February of 2020 to gain more work-life balance, and he also likes to lead and serve with faith-based principles, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit today as well. Tyler, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So you got me really curious because in our pre-show talk, you were saying that this was a fun story about your background and kind of how you got into the eye care profession. So share with us because I think we'll get some nice takeaways from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was a little bit of a long journey, I'll say. So we started, I was in undergrad at a small college called Union University, and actually was going into ministry, went to seminary for a year. And while I was there, I realized that I wasn't going to be people focused. I mean, you're people focused in those environments, but you're not with people every day in and out because there's admin work to be done. And certainly there's still admin work in this, but patient encounters, I mean, I get, anywhere from 10 to 20, previously as an associate, up to 30 encounters a day with people. And so those touch points were really what felt like I was being led to do. And so, halfway through my first semester in seminary, I switched course, I was still working 30 hours a week as a bag boy at the New Orleans Country Club, and taking a full graduate class workload and studying for my optometry entrance exam. Somehow made it through all of it without falling over, and I still actually had a lot of energy. And man, it's been incredible, and it's not been something I've regretted one bit. And it's kind of taken my yearning for working and connecting with people, and also being able to cross up my faith in it as well, and my why. My optometrist growing up was really formative in being able to see how to merge those two worlds and actually incorporate it all together. So I had some really nice influences. Even my doctor that I worked for, that I was an associate with when I first came out of school, he and the gentleman he had bought the practice from, who's still practicing with us, still practicing today, they both were really formative in that as well. So they kind of took what my doctor growing up did and continued to impress upon me the ways that we could kind of do that faith-based practice. So no, I had a lot of really great influences, and man, it was a journey. I didn't always know where I was going, but I knew there was something I was set out to do. And once I found it, it clicked. So there you go, in a nutshell.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So you were talking a little bit too about, this first off, this I always like to it's half kidding, but half like impressive too. February 2020. Did I get that date right that you had started?
February 17th. Yes.
February 17th of 2020. So impeccable timing.
Yeah.
And also though, it says, obviously right before COVID hit, widespread in around here. And but your ability to like come through that and still being thriving and successful, even after getting hit really hard, a month
Right.
into your practice, right?
Yeah.
Says a lot about you and your leadership and your ability to run the practice. So you were talking a little bit about setting it up for long-term success, your practice that is for some long-term success, and kind of starting with your mission and your why. So tell us a little bit about that and kind of the process you've gone through to kind of build out these like foundational principles that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And to go back to what you were saying when we opened in February 2020, those first 3 months, I didn't realize we didn't make our rent payment. I was just excited to have a few dollars coming into the office, So, and then June hit, and then in Tennessee, we started to open up quite a bit then, and people were itching to get out. And it just took off. And I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. So while I would like to think it's all my ability to lead, there was a lot of, I didn't know any better, and ignorance was bliss, So, but it gave me time to sit down and actually dive into like business principles. So I had dedicated time that we don't get when we're in optometry school. I had a really great practice management professor who was also very formative in not just in my career, but in my life as well. And anyways, long story short, I had time to go back, reread my notes, get a few books, kind of dive in and learn a lot about the employee retention tax credit, PPP loans, all the fun stuff everybody was doing. But yeah, so going back to our mission. So our practice's mission really flows out from my personal why. I really like Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. I assume I said his name right, but he kind of draws this, what we call a golden circle. And so in the middle of it is the why, and then how is the next circle, and then the outer circle is the what. Talks about how like a lot of companies will start from the outside and work their way into the middle of the circle. But really what's transformative is when you start in the middle and you work your way out. Well, for me, my why is my faith. And so like being a follower of Jesus, that is instrumental to everything that I do. So the practice was an outpouring of that, an outflowing of that. Our practice mission is to serve our community by correcting vision, improving eye health, and experiencing life together, loving on people essentially. And then like our Ascent Eyecare founding principle is that people deserve to be known, loved, and cared for. And that all comes from my personal why. And so that then moves into our practice's center, if you want to think of it, our center of gravity, our center arrow, inner arrow, or whatever you want to think of it as. One of the things he says in that book is that people don't buy like what you do, they buy why you do it. And so the nice thing about why is that you can't fake it. You know, people will sort it out. You might get by for like a year or so, but then it really kind of starts to come out and people start to see, okay, when you're under pressure, where do you end up and what are you doing? I'm not always perfect, definitely not. Just ask my family, my wife. I mean, I think we all have our moments. But when you do mess up, how do you fix it? How do you address it? You know, so every day we're striving for that, just serving people, loving on them. But yeah, so that kind of gives you an idea of that is our mission and why we do it.
Very nice. Oh yeah, thanks for sharing that. That book, the Start With Why book, always a classic. That you can get a lot. Obviously, you can get a lot of his Simon's teachings and writings, but that one keeps coming up, quite a bit around business circles, around our life too. So it's been a lot of good that's come out of that. And following that process. So what as you were kind of going through that, first off, like I totally agree with you about how people act and react under pressure, right? Kind of brings up some I won't get into it right now, but it kind of brings up some memories of some times where I've seen people like actually almost like they didn't really, but it was almost like they fabricated the pressure moment so that they could show people how they would react. But that kind of seems manipulative. But anyways, I wouldn't do something like that. But no, I think
energy.
What's that? Yeah, right. It's like, come on now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get like, look, when things are going bad, you get to see who people really are. And so whatever you have kind of, inside is gonna come out and show itself, right? It's that stress can be a magnifier for all of us. I think it's just human nature. So no, I totally get that. So what have been, starting the practice and of course we talked about COVID, but what have been some of the toughest challenges in bringing your mission and these principles into reality, as far as building a practice around? One of the things that we always heard is probably different in different pockets and different regions of the country. In Tennessee is quite a bit different from where I grew up, and different from which is all pretty different from where I live now. But one of the things like in business that some of the you would say like in today's day and age, the TikTokers of the business consulting community would tell you, like, don't talk, not talking about faith or religion or politics because it like what do they say? I'm missing the word for a second, but
Turn people off.
yeah, it turns people out. Uh takes away like half of your, market, so to speak.
Right.
But then of course, obviously there are people in professional practices and all kinds of businesses who are just like you and are making that work. So have you found that aspect of things as a real challenge, or do you not tend to let that kind of get in your way, so to speak?
That's a great question. Tennessee is changing. I mean, we have a lot of people that are moving out of state here. And it's wonderful because, it's a great place to live. I mean, we're like on my mom's side, we're 11th generation Tennesseans, which actually goes back when it was in part of the North Carolina colony. And then on my dad's side, we're 9th generation. My kids are 10th and 12th generation. So we've been here for a while, so we understand like the appeal and we love that people are coming, but there also comes some different value systems. That hasn't stopped any of those people from coming here. As a matter of fact, I know people that come here that they don't have the same belief system that I do. And I actually welcome that. And that's what I want. My goal is for anybody from any background, any religion, belief, sex or creed, that they feel comfortable when they come in, that they are seen just as a person who they are. Me personally, would I sit there and say, that's what I want? No, but I want to meet them where they are. And then everything else flows out of that. I just do my part. So for instance, do I sit there and have a faith conversation with every patient? No, but it does happen where people will say, this is different. Why is it different? And then that's when I use that and I say, this is why. And so then we get into that. I also have some subtle little things around the office. Our name, Ascent, comes from the songs of ascent in the book of Psalms. And then it also comes from a Hillsong United. So anybody who's familiar with Hillsong, it's one of their worship songs. It's a secondary title, but it's called Song of Ascent. The primary title is called Highlands. But anyways, all that kind of went into, we're on this journey together. And this is a part of my spiritual journey, but it's also a part of our journey as a community. And so it's melding those two worlds. So am I going to sit there and bash somebody over the head with like Bible, Bible, Bible? No. Or you need Jesus or whatever. No, I let my actions and the way that I conduct myself be my testimony, my picture into that world. And then let them ask the question. There's enough around to jog the mind if they're open to it and wanting it. So I haven't found that that's a problem. I actually find that people find it refreshing, and that it's different and not persuasive, but subtle. And people just are yearning for that real connection. And I think that came out really during COVID. So we get a lot of people from, New York City, Chicago, the West Coast, wherever it may be. And they just see that it's different, and they love it and they eat it up. So anyhow, different pace of life for sure.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So no, that's a great response. And I wasn't really expecting it to lead into any like problems, but I think the way you handle that is really nice. And I can see how, even being in, a different state, a short time, and myself, and it's not Tennessee, but we moved down to Texas recently, and just seeing how people who are quite honestly brought up a bit differently, with different, like I said, different value systems, just different roots, right? But it all melds together very nicely. And I think the way you're going about it sounds like must be working for you, and it sounds like it should be, right? Because I think you're doing some really nice things there. So anything else in terms of, since they didn't really pose a challenge, that's typically my next question. So any real challenges in outside of what we've already talked about, in bringing any of your ideas, your vision for your practice into reality that you want to talk about?
I mean, the biggest thing was probably like COVID in the midst of it. But I mean, everything else, no, it's been very orderly. I've been very fortunate. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, ignorance was bliss. Maybe I was shielded from that a little bit, and when it was time to figure things out, I dug into it and I surrounded one of the things I would say, wouldn't say this a challenge, but whenever something came up, whether it was a build out issue or a vendor problem or whatever it may be, I knew that I had to have the right people around. I didn't always have to have the right answer, but I had to know where to go find it. And so if I don't know an answer, I'll say, hold on, let me go figure it out. And I usually have a network of consultants around me that I'm like, hey, I text them, call them, email them. I probably wish I didn't, but they're actually all really great. I love them. But anyways, they hear from me and I'm like, hey, what do I need to do in this situation? Should I handle it? But as far as like realizing my vision, I mean, yeah, I'm glad to say that I don't have any major challenges. It feels like all those steps have just kind of been laid out for me and I just had to step up and step into them. So no, it doesn't give a really wonderful story. I mean, we did have 2 children in the meantime. So since we started, we opened February of 20, and then our first child was born January 21, and our second child was born October of 22. So we've added 2 kids, and I'm very tired actually today. This week, our youngest has been sick, and so late nights, very few hours. But I'm on my second cup of coffee, which for me, where I might have a cup of coffee like maybe once or twice a month, that's a big deal. Yeah, so I'm on like caffeine overload today. But that would be, I wouldn't necessarily call that a challenge, but it's a juggle. You got to find that balance. And when I started this, that wasn't a balance I had to figure out. So that's been a hurdle that we've had to kind of overcome, both family, for what my wife expects of me at home and then what I expect of myself, and making sure that I'm there for my children, because I got an optometry to be able to have that time at home. And I listened to Dr. Wally's interview. He's down in Collierville, which actually our oldest son is named Collier for Collierville. That's where we first lived when we got married.
Okay.
But I listened to his and talk about the balance of family life, and that's wonderful. That's what I think a lot of us get into private practice for, is to have that control, because people come into primary eye care not necessarily because their eyes are hurting. Certainly we get those infections and injuries and things, and we heal them, we help them. But most of the time it's a quick, like, hey, here's your new prescription, here's a contact lens script, and you're meeting an immediate need, and you have that time to be able to converse with patients, which is wonderful. And you're able to build relationships long term. So that's always a really nice thing to be able to have. So I think I digressed, but anyways, I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I remember us, when I got the chance to talk to you before, I remember you talking about, getting to more focus on getting to really know your patients better, have them more like family. I think you were talking about that with the
Absolutely.
Optometrist that you had as a kid as well. And so that kind of, I mean, that whole like family focused principle that you're living by, right, also carries forward into like your professional life then too. So you have, so talk a little bit about that and how you operate, because I think, when we were talking about that before, it was more so we were looking at some of the differences in different medical fields between, the doctors who are in and out in 5 minutes and the ones who really like to slow it down a bit. And then, but there's always this underlying, seems like there's usually this underlying like concern or feeling, especially when you're the business owner, that there can only be a set amount of time, or I got to get in so many exams per day.
Right.
There's this underlying like profitability motive, which is fine and great. And yeah, sometimes it does come into the mix. I mean, it all plays into the mix because it's not like we can spend a whole day with the patient, right?
Right.
But at the same time, like, talk about how you have managed that a bit, because I think it'll help, hearing different perspectives. I think we all just need to fall into what works for us the best. And so I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was an associate, I was scheduled like every 15 minutes, and that was the practice model. I don't move that fast. I like to be able to spend and talk and take that time with the patient. And not that they didn't, the level of care that they provide is phenomenal. It's extraordinary. And we maintain that level, but I like the conversational aspect, the getting to know. Now, are we sitting there and just like wasting time? No, because people have a day to get to, they have their own schedule, but slowing it down enough that they're able to see that, hey, they're interested in me, you know, and am I perfect at that in every encounter? No, there's some personality differences. And sometimes I go in and I'm being myself, and I can tell with that patient, okay, this isn't quite the way they like to be interacted with. I need to probably pull back. And I will tell you, this is a key lesson I learned, is in those situations, like I need to scale myself back a little bit. Obviously, never be rude, but maybe I don't do all of my like, I talk to them and dig into their life. And I say dig into their life, but ask them what they do for work, ask them about their kids, ask them about their spouse, their family, whatever, kind of what's going on in their world. Some people prefer to be a little bit more private, but you know, when they've come back that second and third year, then you start to see a change in them. And they start saying, hey, how are those kids? I noticed those photos out there. But if you push too hard on that initial counter, you can actually push them away, and then they might never come back. So what I've learned is, okay, sometimes I need to rein it back in depending on the personality sitting in front of me. And over time, they'll come around. And so I just need to be there and be present for that patient. But yeah, so in that other practice, they scheduled every 15 minutes. Here in mine, when I opened, I was every 20. But I felt like I just was still kind of pushing through. So I actually changed it to every 30. I see the patient, I do a medical exam like on the top of the hour. A comprehensive comes at the same time. I take the medical exam, which is usually a short 10 to 15-minute visit because it's a red eye or whatever. And then my technician takes the comprehensive, works them up, and he's wonderful with conversation. So he's able to sit there and kind of go ahead and break the ice a little bit. So then when I come in, it's not so jarring, you know, with me and my personality. But he goes ahead and gets that done. And then I roll in with that patient. We're like off to the races. And then on the 30-minute past the hour comes the second comp. So that gives me enough time to spend in the room with the patient, get to know them while doing a comprehensive exam, giving them high level quality care. And what we saw and what I was worried about when I did that was, okay, are we going to see a decrease in profitability? And actually what we saw was an increase in revenue per patient, and it made up the difference. You know, we have to be mindful of like the bottom line, because that's what keeps the light on and keeps, you know, allowing me to feed my family, but do what I do, you know. And also it's not just my family, it's, you know, my technician staff, my office manager, or my technician's family, my office manager's family, and optician's family. You know, we're providing for 4 families out of this office, not just my own. And so I have to keep that in the back of my mind, of like, all right, we still need to be profitable while we're serving our mission. So are we pushy? No, we offer the patients the best. And then if they say, I can't do that, then we go to our next step option. And we don't really have any resistance to it, because people know that they're getting like a premium product and that it works better than anything else that's out there. So, and also our service.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's great. That brought up a couple things I thought of as you were saying that. Talking about that. Well, one thing that I always go back to, right, which is, you know, the whole profitability aspect of, you know, I think a lot of us from, whatever, probably from our upbringings as well, and perhaps from a young age, a lot of us have at least heard, if not really been reinforced with this idea that somehow profit is, you know, greedy or bad, or and a lot of that I think stems from the bigger corporate world. Obviously, there are exceptions. There are probably small business people who are doing it kind of the wrong way as well. But I mean, I think that's kind of where a lot of that started or emulated from. At least when I track that back in my own life, that's what I see. And but you know, I was come back to the idea, exactly what you were saying, that, you know, it's not greedy. It really doesn't matter how noble your intentions and your goals are. They all need capital to fulfill, right?
Yeah.
Most all of it. So, you know, we need some sort of level of profit to be able to to be able to function. And like you said, even just to be able to keep doing what you're doing and show up to the office every day and keep providing the level of care that you are and helping people in your community. That's a necessary element, right? So we can't, no, I think when you were talking too about, the turning scaling back the personality a bit and that whole conversation, I think I can only think about like probably, like, I would hate to speculate and it's going to be different for everybody, but I put myself in those shoes and I'm like, oh, that probably just would catch me really off guard if I were always used to going to see any professional who was just kind of a like even my primary care physician, right? Who's those are typically in and out quickly type of experiences. And if they just stopped and started asking me more questions and, look at the watch and we've spent 20 minutes not talking about medicine, I'd be like, or at least he's tried to, I'd be like, I'd be caught off guard. I'd be like, is this normal? Like, do you have a thing to get to, or am I okay? Are you buttering me up for some really bad news?
That's right. What's
It's like all these things that go through your head, right? So it's just so obviously it's probably not happening in every case, but it's just what I thought of at the time. And knowing that, that really has, I think, probably evolved quite a bit over the decades. I mean, it's been, let's just call it more than 30 years since my first eye exam. And, but I can remember that doctor as well. Great service, great care. But I don't remember any, as a child as well, but I mean, I was there the whole time and don't recall any small talk, chit chat. And we were in a small town. And so it's just, different types of experiences, I guess, is what I was highlighting there. But I'm glad to hear that it's really eye-opening to hear that what you've done and how you operate in that fashion works for you, and you see it not only in the returning patients and the responses you're getting from them, but also just in the fact that you are more profitable as a result. So those two things, there doesn't have to be a sacrifice of one for the other, right?
Exactly.
So very good. So look, I always wrap up with this, and I know we're going a little bit over on time, so I appreciate you hanging in there. Maybe you've already given it, but if you have, if you want to restate something, or if you have something else, a biggest piece of advice that you'd want to give to others who are on their journey in this industry, what do you suppose that would be?
If I were to give a business tip, mine would probably be that, meet and love on patients where they are visually, emotionally, but also spiritually. And for me, I know what that last one is defined by. Other people may have a different view, but I don't know. If you just care for the whole person, every encounter, just one little anecdotal story, because I know we're getting close to time. I had a patient when we first opened here in my practice that she came in and kind of hurried, a little rushed. By the way, I can do a quick exam. So if a patient tells me, hey, I have an appointment to get to, I can get them in and out with high quality care within about 5 to 10 minutes, no problem. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, doc, I got to go, I totally abide by that and get them in and out. All right, sidetrack. So anyways, I had this patient that came in when I first opened. It was probably in the summer of 20, after COVID restrictions started to lift. She was a little, I wouldn't say abrasive, but just a little edgier than like what I off here. And then when she came to pick up her glasses, of course, we were all dispensing at curbside. So, we go out and dispense it. And she was, upset. There was a nose pad that needed to be adjusted. And I was thinking, that's a really small thing. Why aren't we getting? So come to find out, that patient actually just found out they had been diagnosed with cancer. At the exam, she was waiting on results. So she didn't mention it to us in her medical history. So I had no idea. But you never know what people are going through in their personal life. Well, when she came back the next year, totally different person. We absolutely hit it off. So I was so thankful that I didn't, one, react to really it was bitterness at that time. She was going through like the stages of grief, I believe at that point. And I didn't react to it. I didn't get mad. I didn't get flustered. I mean, personally, privately, I was, but I didn't let the patient show that. And it's making sure that you control that. And no, you never know what's going on at home, personally or medically. So hopefully medically, but sometimes they don't tell you everything. And so when she came back, yeah, we hit it off. She was in remission. Since then, it had recurred, and we've lost her since. And so, but we had some really great conversations in the times I got to see her since. And that just drives home the point: you never know where they're at, and to always meet the patient where they are and be patient with them. And that's why that's really where I learned I need to scale back. And I saw the fruit of that later on, because she came back and we struck up a good little friendship. So that was fun. I enjoyed it while we had her. So.
Well, Tyler, great advice and a great story to go along with it. So thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing all of your time and wisdom today. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we can find some time to catch up again soon.
That sounds great, Eric. I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.